The Slow Tempo by WeGotGuru, a podcast series about anything and everything related to music.
So, hi Rishi, what bands have you been listening to lately?
Different ones,
Okay.
but what stands out is a lot of the Doors songs.
Okay, so you're going back to the olden 60s.
Yeah, I
and
think
all
it's
that.
kind of also ties in with the kind of strange year we've been having.
Oh, exactly. Strange Days.
So a lot of those songs probably, are more resonating with the times that we have been seeing for the last few months.
Exactly. So, what made you listen to the Doors? I mean, what's so significant?
I think I've always, listened to them for a long time. Right from when I was out of college
Okay,
is when
yeah.
I first heard them, as a lot of us probably do. And was struck by the kind of songs that they sang, the performances, and the strong lyrics and the imagery associated with all of that. So
I
it's
see.
been quite an influence. Yes,
So, they kind of stand out on the dark side, right?
totally. Yes, totally. Yes,
So, yeah, it makes sense. It resonates with this whole 2020.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, what are your favorite Doors songs?
I think there's quite a few. I think I can't put a finger on any one of it. But I think quite a few of them are. They always,
Though I think
always.
like each song is different.
It's totally
from the
different.
other,
Yes. Yeah.
And I think Jim Morrison's a very good songwriter, and I think he's a good poet. He was a good poet.
Right.
Yeah.
I think more than a songwriter, probably his poetry is.
More than that
comes out
rock
as
star
more. Yeah.
thingy,
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think that was probably the biggest part of what he stood for, or the kind of things that he put it out there.
Exactly.
And I think we can go back to how the name itself came about. The Doors, when he was heavily influenced by a lot of the philosophers that he
Correct.
read about.
Aldous
he's-
Huxley.
Aldous Huxley, absolutely. And the varied kind of subjects that he covered and read, and which showed up in the kind of music that he wrote
Correct.
or he performed is I think ties in very nicely.
I see.
Any specific songs that you particularly listen to of theirs?
I would say I listen to the underrated stuff like Indian Summer.
Okay.
That's a very brilliant song. It
Right.
starts with the sitar, starting, and then there's Riders on the Storm.
Right.
I mean, apart from the lyrics being dark, I mean, it's a very dark image.
I think a
that's
lot of their songs are
Yeah.
on the darker side.
But I think the thing about this song is that it encapsulates the range so well. When Ray Manzarek, he plays that solo over his keyboard or piano, whatever that instrument is,
Right.
and whenever he hits that note, it sounds like raindrops falling on the window. It's tapping the window.
I never thought of that image when listening to that song. Actually, I
know,
should go back.
It's like the most peaceful image you can find
Right.
from that song. So
Interesting.
yeah.
A main, a rock star typically has,
Exactly.
right? It's kind of very, haunting, if you can say that.
I would say it's a bit of Elvis, a bit of Frank Sinatra.
He was extremely heavily influenced by Elvis. I mean, I mean, there's a story which goes that, whenever his Elvis song came up on the radio, everybody had to just, shut up. So
Correct.
he was a huge fan.
I can imagine, because I think his voice is not exactly the same, but you can feel that influence is always there.
And being a rock band, it's another interesting point that there were not too many rock artists that he looked up to or was
Exactly.
influenced by.
I
It was
think
more of
he was influenced by classical stuff.
very classical stuff, Peggy Lee, R&B, those kind of stuff.
I see. And what about his upbringing? Was he, because from the person he was as a rock star.
He had a very troubled childhood. Probably also a very strict childhood because his father was in the armed forces.
Okay, the Navy, I think, right?
Navy, or I'm not really sure. So, but he was never in one place. They constantly changed places. There was no rootedness, probably. And if you look back to anything, he was constantly in turmoil. He in fact disowned his family as soon as he was kind of an adult. And when he started becoming famous, he said they were all dead. So he, I think, had a very troubled childhood, which also added up to the kind of stuff that he produced much later.
I don't think he wanted to link his family to what he was doing.
Right.
Because it was like completely.
There's also a story which says that the first time somebody brought one of his songs home for his father to listen, he said, this person should be away from music because he does not know anything about music.
He wrote a letter to Morrison saying that he's an absolute waste of talent.
So so I think all of that probably added to his writing and to his music.
Exactly. I think that was the last time he contacted his dad.
Yeah.
And from there was just dead end.
Because in most of his interviews he said they were all dead. He was an only child, though he had siblings.
Exactly. Right. And I think there was this journalist named Patricia who was always with him. Not
very aware of that, but yeah.
I think she was the one who got out the details that he had siblings and that his parents, the whole family was alive, and all that.
Okay.
So I think they were very close, her and Jim.
Interesting.
And I think they got married in a witch ceremony.
Okay. Yeah. But I thought he was never married. I mean, like not formally married as such, right?
Yeah, never formally married
to anybody. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. But I think it's all the kind of stuff he probably read, the philosophers, the poets.
So what are some of them he read?
I think he read Jack Kerouac, he read Ginsberg, William Burroughs, he read a lot of the French philosophers, he read Rimbaud. So I think, which can also be seen in a lot of the spoken poetry that he has performed, short proses, especially the style that Rimbaud wrote about, very short prose poetry kind of stuff. That is very evident. The amount of imagery that comes across in a lot of the lyrics is I think really amazing.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And of course, all his influences of existentialism, loneliness, the recurring images of the highway and the desert and everything associated with it is very, very stark.
It's a very good way to put it.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of his songs, he keeps referring back to the desert and a lot of the stuff associated with the desert.
A lot to do with the desert. So I think what song of his would resonate perfectly with the desert? Would you say it's The End or Roadhouse Blues?
I think that the Roadhouse Blues, the Ghost song, and a couple of others where he's very Peace Frog.
Peace Frog, yeah. I think he speaks about the desert incident.
Right.
Indians scattered on dawn's highway bleeding. Ghosts crowd the young child's fragile eggshell mind.
Kind of like a road accident, but nothing like how he described it.
Exactly.
But it kept recurring back in a lot of the songs that he wrote.
I think that was the root influence in all his music.
Right. I think a lot of the Native American influence in his performances could be seen. The shamanic dances, the rituals that he performed.
Yes.
Even off stage, he's supposed to have been heavily influenced by it, and a lot of the rituals he did with his in his relationships were all heavily influenced by this.
Correct. True.
But all said and done, one thing that really stands out is he was not musically trained. He had no formal training or background in music, but in a very short span of time he was extremely productive.
I think he had a bunch of great bandmates around him.
Totally true, yes, because I think a lot of the lyrics were written by Robbie Krieger.
Exactly.
A lot of the big songs, including the first one, Light My Fire.
Yep.
But I think they were phenomenally productive, given that he was heavily into substance abuse.
Exactly.
In a matter of 5 or 6 years, they brought out so many studio albums and performances. He wrote a phenomenal amount of poetry, got it published, and a lot of them got released or published after his death.
Correct. That's true. And there's this one album. It's called The American Prayer.
Right.
Yep. The one that's based completely on his poetry, but after his death.
Right. Much after his death.
Much after his death.
Yeah.
I think they found it in an archive because most of his poetry was lost. Like they recovered some tapes from Paris. They actually compiled and called it Lost Tapes in Paris.
Right.
I think it's the same one. I'm not so sure.
So was it all kind of like recorded? He had recorded and kept it somewhere?
Yeah, it was like I think most of his recordings that he's done, spoken poetry,
Okay.
were in the studio from at the age of 27. Actually, on his 27th birthday, he was alone, just the sound guy inside the studio, just him and the sound guy, and he was just reading out his poetry. That's all he was doing.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then later on, they found the
entire
tapes
collection,
and they were like, okay, we need to compose some musics to it, and that's how Ghost Song came to life, and Newborn Awakening, Dawn's Highway.
Interesting.
Bird of Prey. I think Bird of Prey is an a cappella, but still brilliant. And the way he sings, I can actually tell how much he's influenced. I mean, how much training he's got from his bandmates, especially Ray Manzarek. I read somewhere at the initial days when Jim Morrison was starting out to sing, I mean, he was not belting out the right tunes, so he was somewhere there. So Ray Manzarek pushed him. And
I also read that probably it's got to do with him being a very shy person.
Yeah, that's also there. He used to be very shy in his performances.
For all the
exactly.
extremely exaggerating public performances, he was supposed to have been a very privately a very shy person.
Apparently a very shy person. He used to turn towards his bandmates, his back's against the audience. So that was his scenario. And then I don't know how he gained the confidence, but as soon as that happened, everything turned around.
Probably became a totally different person when on stage, and
I think because
lost himself in that moment.
It's like completely, it's like you have your life outside the thing, and then when you come inside. So I think maybe outside he was a very basic, simple person.
But was he ever sober? Is an interesting question.
No, he was never sober. I don't ever recall him.
So I don't think he could have, would have written such phenomenal stuff if he was probably sober.
Exactly. But then he did make his efforts but it didn't work out that well. But yeah, a lot of his stuff were based on when he was going through substance abuse and all that. But then again, even during those times, he did try to get away and boycott all what he was doing. Basically, he wanted even to say, he actually signed a death certificate.
Oh, interesting.
His own death certificate.
Okay, that's morbid.
It's very morbid. So what happened was he tried to boycott everything, and he just wanted to write poetry. He wanted to get back to his core element, which is brilliant, because I think he was a good poet, and if he was alive, his view on the world already it's way futuristic.
But would he have been such a cult hero if he had continued living beyond when?
Well, no, I think if he lived beyond 27, he'd be jailed for a lot of time.
Right.
And then as the laws kept coming up, I don't think he would be able to cope up with anything. Maybe he would have gone and he would have been with indigenous people.
Okay, I think that's a whole lot of speculation that we can probably get into. But I think his whole personality was and the cult that he became was also probably to do with that he died young.
He died young. Yeah, that's also there. He was part of the 27 Club, and that's a lot of great artists lost their lives at the age of 27.
I think we could use that as a theme for one of our series.
We should
the
actually.
amount of great artists who died at the age of 27, and why it's such a
Yeah,
fascinating
exactly.
number and age.
I mean, is there some mysticness to it towards it? I
There
don't think so.
definitely
But
seems to be, but maybe there's some matter out there that somebody has researched on, and we could probably do that.
yeah,
as
we
a
could probably do that in the next
Yeah.
session.
Yeah. But talking about their music and performances, they were not really, in sync with the times, in the sense that a lot of the songs were really, really long. They were
Exactly.
not a 4 or 5 minute kind of a song. A lot of the songs were 8, 10, 11 and beyond.
True.
And when he was performing on stage, there was no set pattern, right? I mean,
That was the beauty of it. I mean, when he was on stage, when he was on set, each song would sound more different than how it was recorded. Like, let's say the end, or Light My Fire. He just changed the lyrics on the stage,
Right.
and what he does is spoken poetry. So he just blends that in, and he does beautiful improv.
I mean, in a lot of their studio recordings also, you hear those extremely long riffs and
Exactly.
the organ music going on and on and on. Of course, it changes its tempo,
Exactly.
but there are long segments of it with absolutely no lyrics in between.
I think everything about the Doors is strange, but I think the idea here is that every individual was very talented in music. Let's say John Densmore, the drummer, he was a jazz freak. Robbie Krieger was trained in flamenco, and I think he did play the sitar.
Okay.
He did take few lessons. Ray Manzarek was an avid piano player, keyboardist, and he had his own band with his brothers, his elder brothers.
And a lot of them, even after Jim Morrison's death, and when they tried, of course, continuing as the Doors, but
yeah,
were
they
not
have
really
this
successful.
album.
But a lot of them continued playing for many years after that.
They still do. If you go right now on YouTube and type Robbie Krieger, you'll get all the tutorials to the Doors music. So that's what Robbie's up to. John Densmore is purely into percussion in terms of sound production and everything, and he also does teaching these days. So and unfortunately Ray Manzarek isn't alive anymore, and I think he was the glue of the band.
Being an older guy.
Being an older guy, being the much more wiser guy in terms of sobriety.
Right.
Yeah. So,
Right.
but even the others also, they had their own personalities, which was kind of cool also.
I think there's a whole lot of material and points to discuss about Jim Morrison and the Doors, and I think we could have a series of them talking about
we could for sure.
the influences, the kind of music that they produced, his performances, his off-stage life.
Exactly.
I think we could probably think about a whole series about them. But I think for now it is a good introduction.
I think for now it's a good introduction. Yeah.
All right. I think we should catch up sometime soon and talk about.
I just want to say one last point. I think any performance of the Doors is not a performance; it's a ritual.
Right.
Every song, every set it's a pure ritual. It's like no limits, no laws, just what he says.
Right. I mean, he finally broke on to the other side.
Exactly, he broke on through to the other side.
All right. Thanks
All
so
right.
much, Vikas.
Thank you, Rishi, for having me.
Our next episode will be up soon. Thanks for tuning in.